It is CyHawk week on the basketball side of things. We got the women on Wednesday, the men on Thursday, a top 10 showdown. CyHawk renewed on the hardwood. We break it down today, Locked On Crossover Edition.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon. That's Nick Marovets, and this is a crossover edition of Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, now number one for podcasts. Today's episode of the program is brought to you by FanDuel. It might be right in the middle of the action this season of the NFL, but visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long at FanDuel. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio, including currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network with stations all across the state. Nick's got you covered on the Cyclone side of things each and every day with Locked On Cyclones. Nick, good to see you again. And, well, you called it back in September as Iowa State got off to the great start of the year. Things didn't quite end in the same fashion, but here we are once again, a December tradition, and I love how this is set up. Men on Thursday. Before that, though, we get the appetizer and a pretty good one with the top 10 women's showdown.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Trent. We never really got to catch up after that football game. Obviously, Iowa State started the year so hot, like you mentioned, and I was at that game. Boy, was that an electric atmosphere. I'm hoping that the basketball side of things looks the same. We'll start with the women, but I think the bigger story is the men with how good Iowa State is right now.
We're also going to talk some football. Obviously, the departure of Matt Campbell, a big story. We'll talk about that and already start to take a peek forward to 2026 in the CyHawk matchup, and a matchup that might be ending here pretty soon. Contract just a couple more years left on it, and what the future of CyHawk is on the football field. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Nick, you mentioned it. Women first, then we'll get into the men, and then a breakdown of some football here as we take a look at things. Let's open it up here with this top 10 matchup, Iowa State. I saw the opener came out in the point spread. I was surprised. Iowa State was just a 1-point favorite. See the number as we sit here on Wednesday morning, it jumped up to 3.5. The Cyclones, the favorite in this one. So kind of interesting on that front. I think I was surprised, as a lot of people were expecting Iowa State. Not that they were going to be a huge favorite in this game, but maybe that point spread a little tighter than anticipated.
Definitely. I think you just have to give the credit to Iowa basketball, like on the women's side of things, what they've been for so long, obviously with the Caitlin Clark era and even coming out of that, they've been pretty successful. Iowa State, not quite to the same caliber, but for this season, Audi Crooks has been unbelievable, and Jada Williams has been everything that I thought she would be coming out of Arizona. When she announced that she was transferring over, I went ahead and looked at her tape, and I've said this multiple times. I was shocked, like blown away with what she was able to do at Arizona, and she's carried it over very well to Iowa State, averaging 6.7 assists. That leads the team for Iowa State. And then you've got Addy Brown, who was a staple last season, stays in that role this year, leading the team in rebounds. This team is deep, and they've got unbelievable talent at the top. So, I'm not too upset with the point spread. I think that that's really more of like a historical thing. Iowa's just been so good. Iowa State's coming onto the scene. I'm more worried about like this actual matchup, looking at the players. And I think Iowa State has a very, very good lineup so far. How do you feel about Iowa right now? Because I feel like a lot of Iowa State fans know Iowa for Caitlin Clark and for that era. But since then, how has Iowa kind of treated the waters?
A year ago after the departure of Clark, it was, I think, incredibly important for them to do what they did. They got back to the tournament. They won a game and went terribly in the second round against Oklahoma. It was just one of those games where nothing could go right for the Iowa women. But they got there. They kind of built that bridge, getting into the next era. And you see recruiting's going very well. The thing about this team, they went into the portal. They got a point guard themselves as they hosted Jada Williams. Then she, of course, committed to Iowa State. That was kind of the top of their list as well at the point guard spot. But they brought in Chit Chat Wright. Great name, incredibly fun to watch. Now, she's little. She's 5'4", lightning quick, though. She's also been banged up. And that is certainly a concerning component to it. She's shooting 57% from 3. She can get to the rim. She's incredibly fast, but because she's been banged up, it sounds like she's going to be able to go tonight, and they don't have any concerns about that, but had a concussion, and we know anything about concussions. Another pop could very quickly pull her out of the game. But the name probably Cyclone fans need to know more than anything. Yeah, Hannah Stuelke's around. You've seen her the last 4 years. Taylor McCabe, a tremendous shooter, and talk about shooting the ball well. She's been real hot here the last couple of weeks of the season. You got both of those players. Kylie Feuerbach, who, of course, Cyclone fans will know well from her days in Iowa State. She's back, really good defender, limited offensively. Those are the veterans. But the name to know is inside and Ava Heiden. She is playing like an All-American. Iowa State's got an All-American inside themselves. She is a different type of center, though, than what you get. Her ability to run the floor, her coupled with Hannah Stuelke. And I think that's got to be the game plan here for Jane Jensen. With Jensen, the way that they're built, they want to play fast. They want to get it up and down the floor, and they want to tire out the bigs of Iowa State. Make it difficult on Audi Crooks. Don't let her on the defensive end. Make her move up and down the floor, and you can do that with Heiden, a 6'4" post that can really move. You can obviously do that with Stuelke, and even off the bench, their fresh centers played really well in Layla Hayes. We know foul trouble is going to be a part of it, but I think that's got to be the game plan for Iowa. They want to go in there, and they want to make this a fast basketball game.
Okay, so I was actually just about to ask, what is your plan, or what do you think Iowa's plan needs to be, not necessarily your plan, for this Iowa team against Audi Crooks? Because we saw Valpo try to basically run one-on-one with Audi Crooks all night long, and that did not end well. That was the first time Audi broke her career points record. It was going to be broken just a few games later, but obviously running the floor has been something that I think a lot of teams have tried to do with Iowa State this season. It just hasn't quite worked out. Do you think Iowa doubles the inside, try to keep Audi off the boards and off of scoring 40-plus points? Because if they do, I would counter that Audi's done a very good job of feeling what she's got defensively and kicking it back out. Now, Jada Williams not shooting lights out from 3, but at least getting enough looks if teams are going to focus in on Audi. Do you think that they play the game, gamble with the one-on-one, or do they end up trying to double, triple team, and make other players score?
I think that is going to be the game plan, at least initially, that they're going to throw a couple of different looks at her. I think that Heiden has the ability with her size to hold up, but you got to keep her out of foul trouble. And because of that, I don't think you can just play straight up throughout it. You're going to send a couple of different players. And on top of it, see if Iowa State can hit those shots from the outside. You mentioned Jada Williams. It hasn't been tremendous to this point in time. Hare is a great shooter. What she can do out there and getting her back off the injury is big. It's going to be as simple as that. Sydney Harris, it's been high volume this year, 35%. If it's one of those games, though, where they start hitting, you got to change your game plan. I mean, you got to just do it in a completely different way. So I think Jan Jensen's going to have a couple of different ideas of what they're going to do on the defensive end. We've seen it, though, a couple of times. I mean, now go back to her freshman campaign, Audi Crooks, when they played Stanford, and she was tremendous in that game, but she just didn't have a whole lot of help there. My biggest concern, though, more than anything, is not Audi. Audi's going to get hers, right? I think we all know she's going to be able to do it. And even if it's not scoring, 30, 35 points, she's going to get it because she's going to find the open shooter and she's going to get some assists and help the team out that way. It's Addy Brown. I absolutely love her. I mean, just rugged, tough, physical, can do it. You want to go inside, she's going to bruise you. Outside, she's going to hit the open 3. She is so tremendous. She can do it on both ends of the floor. Addy Brown, I just think she is criminally underrated. This is an All-American player, but Audi, she's a local girl on top of it. She gets all the headlines, but Addy Brown, for my money, she is right there with her.
Addy Brown is absolutely an underrated name, and it's crazy to say that when you look at what Audi Crooks is doing, just headlines galore, 40-plus points, and her bag has been expanded. I don't know if we're really going to touch on that too much, but she's not quite as one-dimensional as she was early on in her college career. Now she's kind of got the fadeaway, kind of mixed in and all sorts of different shots. But I look at this team as like Audi Crooks is kind of like the name. Jada Williams is this like crazy, somehow keeps the team energized, but almost too far to an extent where Addy Brown comes in and levels everyone off and somehow keeps like those consistency stats up with 9.1 rebounds per game. That's almost double-digit rebounds per game. Unbelievable. Like you said, underrated is absolutely the best term. I think in this one, I'm going to take the Cyclones, but I don't hate the line. Like you said, it's a little bit tighter than people expect. I don't expect Iowa State to run away with this one. Obviously, if they catch fire, they catch fire. But I expect Iowa State to win this by probably 5 to 9 points, single digits.
when you look at the advanced metrics for both of these teams, there is one thing that jumps out. The Iowa team, offensive efficiency this season, they're towards the top of college basketball on both ends of the floor. They're 25th in the country there, 9th in the country in defense. On the other side, for the Cyclones, they're 7th in the country in adjusted efficiency offensively. No surprise how they played. 2nd in efficiency field goal percentage. But how about this? On the defensive end, they're 69th. Now, I know a lot of that has to do with that high-scoring game against Indiana, but that's the one part this Iowa State defense, efficiency-wise, hasn't been quite as good as you'd anticipate, even when they only gave up 34 to Sacred Heart. They give up 50 to Valpo, 52 to Norfolk State. The efficiency numbers maybe tells you something there. I think if Iowa's going to win this game, they have to outscore them. They're not going to win 68-65. This has got to be something upper 70s into the 80s if they're going to pull it off. And we're going to talk about our prediction for this one a little bit later on. We got the women already finished up. Let's get into the men next. That will be Thursday. Can the Hawkeyes pull off the upset? Or is it going to be another drubbing from Iowa State as they've won 3 of the last 4 in this series? We'll talk about that as we continue. It's a crossover edition here of Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Well, it is here, the NFL season. It moves so fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best when the game starts to shift. You can feel it. You're a fan. I can feel it. Nick can feel it. Receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player prop updates as guys start to heat up. You can bet who's going to score the next touchdown. Drive results. See a punt coming? Yeah, you can hit that. Totals and a whole lot more. Every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Back with you on a crossover edition. It's Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Thanks for making Locked On your first listen every day. We're going to tell you a little bit about our Everydayer Club as well for our great everyday listeners. But first, let's talk some hoops on the men's side. Boy, Saturday. I mean, you talk about an elixir that every Cyclone fan needed with what was happening with Matt Campbell. That was absolutely perfect. That second half drubbing of Purdue. What a thing of beauty for you Cyclone fans.
Yeah, I think the universe knew, and Taman Lipsey actually mentioned it in his press availability this week. They knew on the team that Iowa State Nation needed that victory, and it wasn't really that close. Iowa State really dominated Purdue in that game. It was a lot of fun to watch, even though we'd been kind of through the ringer over the last 24 hours. Iowa State in that game, though, I feel like really proved that they are a national title contender. Up until that point, like the Players Era tournament, there were some decent games in there, but they were upset, obviously, getting Syracuse in that third round. Like, we probably could have faced a tougher opponent. It was Mississippi State, maybe the toughest opponent prior to that. I think that Purdue game really showed me that this Iowa State team is legit, and I think Hawkeye fans need to be a little scared going into this game.
I think most Hawkeye fans, after what happened out in East Lansing against Michigan State, maybe it was kind of that reality moment. The Ole Miss win that they got out in California looked good at the time, maybe doesn't look quite as good. Grand Canyon's an okay mid-major, but they're just that. And then all of a sudden, hey, there's still work to be had. And you go back to that Michigan State game for Iowa, it was really just a lack of scoring. They couldn't get anything going. And Michigan State is built very similar to Iowa State. They're going to be rugged. They're going to mug you. They're going to grab you. They're going to hold you. And nobody in that building that was wearing cardinal and gold is going to believe that there's a foul on their team, just like it is in East Lansing. And on the sideline, now, to be fair, Tom Izzo, he's much different with officials than TJ Otzelberger. And I certainly would rather have Otzelberger on my side as opposed to Izzo. The complaining to refs drives me crazy. But that aside, I think it was an eye-opener. But maybe more importantly for Iowa, it was an eye-opener understanding, hey, this is where we need to get. And with this game on the horizon, knowing what was coming on Thursday night against Iowa State, I think that environment will help them, just knowing what they're walking into the snake pit, because, it's going to be charged up. It's going to be wild. It's going to be loud. It's going to be a difficult environment, maybe even more difficult than what they saw in East Lansing. But having that moment with this group, Now, these guys from Drake, they never played a moment like that. Yeah, they played the NCAA tournament, but that's a neutral site environment. Against Missouri, against Texas Tech a year ago. You look at some of the other guys. Most of these guys haven't faced anything quite like this. That learning experience, maybe that's enough for Iowa to hang around. That's, I think, what they have to do in this matchup. Hang around, make some shots, and certainly they got to be better here. This Iowa State team, I mentioned Lipsey coming back. One thing that I've really been impressed by this squad, though, is Joshua Jefferson. And I mentioned Bart Torvik, one of the analytics sites that has the women's side, Ken Pomeroy, another analytics site. My everyday listeners know I'm a big numbers guy. Joshua Jefferson, second in the country right now in his player of the year rating. In the country, not second in the Big 12, second in the country. This dude, whoever found the money to keep him away from LSU, you guys got to be really thankful.
That was a huge get, I guess. He stayed, obviously, but a huge get for Iowa State. And you mentioned the atmosphere. I just want to touch on this really quick. I don't know if you probably knew this, but I put value into this. This is Hilton, right? This is arguably the best atmosphere in college basketball. So it's already off the charts. I'm actually scared it's going to be so jazzed up. It's going to be a problem for Iowa State. They're going to have too much, energy in this one because Iowa State's introducing Jimmy Rogers to Cyclone Nation in this game. So just keep that in mind. This place will be beyond rowdy. As far as Iowa State goes, obviously you mentioned Tamin Lipsey, you mentioned Joshua Jefferson, Milan Momcilovic, another name. I'm sure Hawkeye fans know who he is by this point. He's a returner as well. But I wanted to bring it up. Those three guys are all in the top 30 of Porpagatu, this crazy stat. If you want to talk numbers, points over replacement per adjusted game at that usage. Don't have to get into numbers, but basically what it means is how valuable is each of those players. There's only been 5 teams in the history of basketball that have 3 players in the top 30. Iowa State has those 3 in there. So definitely something to keep in mind. Those 3 guys, Iowa fans know. How do you've watched a little bit of Iowa State basketball, I'm assuming. How do you feel about Killian Torrey, this freshman that might not even get 2 years at the college level because he is so good?
Yeah, and on the defensive end, I mean, this guy is absolutely tremendous. He can lock you up. He's knocking down the 3-pointers throughout the course of this season. And, coming into the year when we started here during the summertime about Torrey and knowing that he was at least going to be a rotation piece, that was kind of the initial, I think, surprising some people. Weren't sure what you're getting a guy from France and what he was able to do. But I think it's so important for Iowa State. We know the mileage that's on Tamin Lipsey, a guy that has had injury after injury, has already had another one throughout this season, is being able to kind of keep the odometer down a little bit on him and his ability to run the point guard, to play off the ball, and then what he does on the defensive end, where we know Lipsey's a tremendous defender, but now every night he doesn't have to face the point guard. He doesn't have to face the best guard on the team. He can not take time off because you're never going to do that under Otzelberger on the defensive end of the floor, but there isn't that he has to be a number one at the top of the sheet doing kind of everything for this team. I think it's been a huge, huge add for this team. And I got one more question on the Iowa State side. What's going on with Momcilovic? I like the kind of meeker guy, the guy that would sit in the corner and shots weren't falling, he'd kind of fade away. I don't like watching this guy because he's too dang good.
This guy is unbelievable this season. Yeah, we'll get over to Iowa in a second, but just for you Iowa listeners, this is probably not something you're super familiar with going into this season. TJ Otzelberger told Milan, shoot more, you'll make more. All right. Stop shooting 4 times a game. Make it, 3 of them. It's a high percentage, but you're not, producing that many points for Iowa State. He has shot the lights out because he's shooting more and more and getting into the rhythm of games. I don't think he needs to be that guy that scores 30 points tonight for Iowa State, but he certainly has kind of become that, averaging 18.3 points a game. Iowa State, with Jefferson at 17.6 and Lipsey at 16.8, 3 guys almost at 18 points a game. But yeah, Momcilovic coming out on top. He's been unbelievable. On the Iowa side of things, I'm curious about Bennett Sturtz because there was so much noise about him at Drake and making the move over. Obviously, a ton of Drake guys come over to Iowa's D1 squad. That was the conversation. Can they make the jump? How is Iowa doing with all of them, but more specifically Sturtz?
Sturtz did not play well against Michigan State. Looked like he was a little bit rattled, and you can't see it in his face or his demeanor. He is calm, cool, and collected, but he was just out of sorts. He didn't play well in that game. He hit an early 3, but after that, he struggled. And when you're taking on Jeremy Fears, another one of the best point guards in college basketball, that's definitely going to happen, and he locked him up. The problem is Sturtz, in the second half, he played okay. Iowa was able to get it down to 10 a couple of times, but never could get over the hump because nobody else really showed up. They didn't get a whole lot. One of the more surprising components of this team is a name that I think a lot of Cyclone fans will know, and that's Brendan Hassan. So Hassan, a year ago, he was at Kansas State. He went into Hilton, shot lights out in that game. In the end of the first half against Michigan State, he had a little flurry, hit a three, got to the free throw line, had 7 points in just like 4 minutes of action during a stretch there towards the end of the half as Iowa was trying to close the gap. He didn't play in the second half. He didn't play again in their game Saturday in the blowout win against Maryland. Something weird. Iowa needs more scoring punch. And I know he's not the defender that Ben McCollum wants. He's not going to be elite on that end of the floor, but it's just weird. A guy that was, after Bennett Sturtz, maybe number 2 on the list of the portal entries that they gained, probably along with Alvaro Fulgaris, who came in from Robert Morris, and he doesn't play in a Big Ten game, a Big Ten blowout game. He doesn't even play. I wonder if Hassan is going to get some run in this one. Certainly one to keep an eye on. And Iowa, when you mentioned Bennett Sturtz, he's going to be solid at minimum. I think he's going to be fine overall. They need that second, maybe third and fourth scoring punch in this game. It's going to be, I think, another rugged affair. I think it's going to have to be low scoring again for Iowa. Kind of the opposite of what we talked about on the women's side. Going to have to go the other way. I think the Iowa women, if they're going to pull off the upset, they got to do it more high scoring. For the Iowa men, grind this thing, ugly, hideous, ugly basketball. That's how they're going to have to go into Hilton and win it. We're going to make our predictions for these games. We're also going to talk a little football. Matt Campbell departs. The new coach, Nick mentioned it, Jimmy Rogers coming in. What's the new Cyclone in? How long of a runway does he have? Because that rebuild could be pretty big. We'll talk some football and make our predictions for basketball when we come back here. It's a crossover edition, Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Today's episode of this crossover edition is brought to you by Rugiet. Let's talk about something most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life, it doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rugiet Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rugiet Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. Rugiet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients into 1 mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. You connect with a board-certified doctor online and everything ships discreetly to your door. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now is the time. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Back with you one final time. It's Nick and Trent here on a crossover edition, Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones as we get ready for some hoops. Before we can talk a little football and make our predictions, Nick, let's talk a little bit about what we have going on right now. Our Everydayer Club, really cool thing that we're just launching here on Locked On. Everybody, you love your team every day here on the Locked On Network, and now you can take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Hawkeyes or Locked On Cyclones with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go again to our website so you can find those in the bottom of our show notes here, and we will get you hooked up with that. Nick, really excited about this launch here, what we have going on with the Everydayer Club.
Yeah, I think this is super exciting for all Hawkeye fans and Cyclone fans out there to get the content ad-free and be a part of all this other stuff going on. I'm pumped just to be on this side of it. I can't imagine being a fan.
No doubt. Let's talk some football first. Matt Campbell, it was striking how the fan base took this. I thought that was the component that really was eye-opening to me. I know Matt Campbell was beloved, the most certainly in recent history, as good of a coach as they've had. I mean, you go back to the 70s, and yeah, they had some success at that time, but that was a long time ago. To see, though, just the sadness from the fan base, that was eye-opening to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak on everyone's behalf, but like for myself, I think what was it was just really shocking. I felt like, because we had talked about this on the channel about how he was probably, at least a candidate at that Penn State job back in early October. I went back and looked. I was like, I feel like I've talked about this before, and I had. And so the fact that it came up and then it kind of went away, it felt like it was a traditional offseason. Of course, Matt Campbell is going to be considered for a top coaching job. Like, when is he not? Let's move on. Let's have a day. And then all of a sudden, it happened so fast. It was like Thursday night, hey, there's a rumor. Friday morning, I woke up. I was like, hey, that was just smoke. It's no big deal. And then Friday was a whirlwind, and all of a sudden he's gone. And then 30 minutes later, we have a new head coach. It just like all happened so fast, and it was unexpected. I think that was what got me the most. It wasn't, I don't want to say I never thought, but I certainly was not expecting Matt Campbell to leave this early. I thought it would be at least a few more years. That wasn't really, it was more of the shock factor for me. But I think a lot of Iowa State fans feel the same way I do. We're ready to take on Jimmy Rogers. We're happy for everything Matt Campbell did for Iowa State. We're happy for those 10 years, but at some point we have to move on, take a look at the future and see what the future holds. And I think Jimmy Rogers is going to be a great head coach for Iowa State.
So, Nick, with that, I mean, you look at that squad for next season. We don't know what the portal is going to look like when it opens up on January 2nd. Still, we hear plenty of rumblings about the number of guys that are going to be departing, either just entering the portal, following Matt Campbell to Penn State. Jimmy Rogers did it a year ago at Wazoo, but he's got a pretty big undertaking in front of him. I mean, are Cyclone fans resigned that 2026 probably going to be a rebuilding year for him and trying to get at least their feet underneath them in year number one?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an understanding that the trajectory we were on is going to be paused for at least a year, right? Like this first year, obviously, Jimmy Rogers, he's recruited some of the guys that are on the roster now, but he hasn't built a recruiting class for this school for this year. So it's going to take a little bit. I think we're probably going to lose a fair amount to the portal. They're going to go to Penn State. But I personally do feel pretty good about where Iowa State is at, just all things considered. I'm not saying Iowa State's going to retain 80% of guys, but I'm going into this as, just knowing that a fair amount of guys were going to leave regardless. Whether Iowa State won the Big 12 championship or if they lost every single game, there was going to be guys that left the team. That's just the reality of college football. And then you consider the Matt Campbell thing. There are going to be guys that follow him. There are going to be recruits like Slagle that were recruited by Clanton and Campbell. Both of them went to Penn State. Of course, those guys are going to leave. But I think the guys that are in that gray area, I do feel like we're going to see Rogers be able to sway a fair amount of them to stay at Iowa State. A few of the speeches he's made already, I feel good about. I know social media is like really convoluted, but some of those posts have me feeling optimistic. I wouldn't say it's over yet for Iowa State. I still feel pretty positive, but that's relative, right? Like Iowa State's just in a tough spot.
No doubt. In Iowa, they'll be 7-5, 8-4 next year. I think we know how that's going to go. We'll get to September, and we'll definitely break things down, and we'll do some crossovers maybe this summer as well, leading into the game. Let's get into our predictions for the hardwood. Let's start Wednesday night. It is the women's side of things. It is a 4.5-point spread now at FanDuel. Iowa State favored. Mentioned there was an opener that Iowa State just a 1-point favorite. Not surprised by the move. I thought we were going to see plenty of Cyclone steam in this one. I think Iowa is going to get that pace up. I just don't think that they have quite enough to get it done on the road in Hilton. This is their first big road trip of the year. And remember, this is also a really young Iowa team. I think that gets forgotten a little bit after the three stalwarts that have been around for 4 years. This is a squad that overall definitely has some young pieces there. I got Iowa State getting it done, though. 83-80, another thriller. Iowa gets the cover of the 4.5 at FanDuel, but Iowa State gets the win.
Yeah, I do think I was actually picking right around that 80 mark. I think Iowa State comes away with probably 82. I'll say Iowa comes in right around 70. I don't know if Iowa State really separates at the end of this one to push it beyond the 10-point margin. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I think it's right around that 80 mark as well.
Over on the men's side of things, now this is interesting. Ken Pom has this projected a 13-point spread between the two teams at Hilton. Over at Bart Torvik, though, just 8.5 is the number. Iowa a little bit tighter. I lean more to Ken Pomeroy's side of things. I think that Iowa State controls this one. I just don't think that the Hawkeye men have enough punch offensively to win a game like this in this environment at this point. Bennett Sturts is going to have to be an All-American, I think, for them to have any hope. And they're probably going to have a couple other guys have really good nights. I don't see it happening here. I think this is a pretty easy Iowa State victory as they move in now 4 out of 5 for the Cyclones on the men's side.
Yeah, I hate to do this. I really, really do. As an Iowa State fan, I hate to say Iowa's going to lose this game, but it's gonna be an Iowa State victory. I think it's probably somewhere around the margins of. I think Iowa they've been scoring like crazy. That's been the kind of the thing that Iowa State hasn't done historically. They've had good defense, but they haven't really been able to score. This year, it's a little different. So I'm going to say Iowa State scores probably in the range of around 85. Iowa comes down with maybe 68. I think Iowa State's defense is very, very good. I think it's a pretty dominant win for the Cyclones.
Well, thank you for tuning in today for our crossover edition, Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Tomorrow, we'll have a recap. I know I will of the women's game. I'm sure you will as well, Nick, and get ready. One final look at the men's side of things with each of our shows. Make sure you subscribe and follow both of the podcasts here so you can get the latest episodes. You can find us also on social media. Follow along with everything that we have going on there. And did you make your Locked On Hawkeyes or Locked On Cyclones Spotify wrap? Prove it on social media and secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club and get your favorite shows ad-free and exclusive access to members-only Discord channel. For those of you on video, we'll send you the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure that you make your second listen of the day Locked On College Football. Nick, it's been fun. We will talk to you again soon. Let's get it done for the Hawkeye side of things. I know you got a different viewpoint, but should be a couple fun ones at Hilton.
Hey, I can't wait. It's obviously been fun today, but it is in fact a Cyclone state. Matt Campbell said it. I'm saying it right here, right now. Roll Clones, baby.